Hello folks and welcome back to the fourth top 8 match of the EUIC VGC tournament. We have uploaded all 4 videos of the EUIC top 8 on the channel if you want to go check out the rest of them, but this is top 8D. And this is going to be the first game of between Gavin Michaels and Yosuke Takayanagi. Now, we have seen a lot of really successful teams throughout this tournament. We have seen most restricted Pokemon do pretty well. In the last match, we got to see a super exciting matchup with Iron Treads up against a Miraidon. But here we have Gavin Michaels, who is running a Kyogre team with Amoonguss, Terra Dark, Rocky Helmet, Spore, Rage Powder, Clear Smog, and Pollen Puff. Clear Smog for Kyogre teams is pretty big. As someone who's been playing quite a bit of Kyogre myself, dealing with stuff like Dondozo or even Zamazenta can be really difficult. Clear Smog doesn't help against Zamazenta, but against stuff like Dondozo or up against Calyrexes that are getting really strong with their Neigh boosts, Clear Smog can do a lot of work. You also have Chien-Pao, Urshifu, Rapid Strike, and Iron Hands as the physical attacking core. Chien-Pao is Terra Stellar with Focus Sash. It has Icicle Crash, Sucker Punch, Sacred Sword, and Protect. Urshifu here, this is yet another new set that we have seen. This is a Terra Water with Choice Scarf with some pretty standard moves: Surging Strikes, Close Combat, Aqua Jet, and U-Turn. That's about what you can expect when you have a Choice Scarf on your Urshifu. Iron Hands is Terra Grass, Fake Out, Drain Punch, Wild Charge, Low Kick. We have just seen this Pokemon absolutely everywhere here in the top 8. It is just so strong, especially if there is a Miraidon. You can just get a big Quark Drive boost, but it doesn't even need Quark Drive to do a ton of work. And then finally, Tornadus Incarnate. This is a tried and true long-term pairing with Kyogre ever since both have been competitive legal. Covert Cloak on the Tornadus is really big to prevent it from getting hit by Fake Outs, Terra Dark to stop taunts, Bleak Wind Storm, Rain Dance, Tailwind, and Taunt to round out the move set here. Taunt can do a big number in anything that wants to set up with a Calm Mind, anything that wants to click Trick Room, or things like Amoonguss or any Ogerpons that want to click Follow Me or Rage Powder and stop some of that redirection. If you are Gavin, your primary special damage dealer is going to be that Kyogre, although Tornadus can still dish some out with Bleak Wind Storm. Chien-Pao paired alongside either the Iron Hands or the Urshifu is going to be doing a ton of damage. And you have 4 really aggressive threats if you are Gavin Michaels. You have 2 more supporting Pokemon, and so figuring out how to maneuver those is going to be big. For Yosuke here, though, things are a little bit different. We have the Calyrex Ice Rider, the physical restricted Pokemon here, and it is Terra Water, Clear Amulet with Glacial Lance, High Horsepower, Trick Room, and Protect. This is a very standard set that we have seen. Calyrex being able to set up its own Trick Room is absolutely huge. A very similar Amoonguss to what we have on the other side with Rocky Helmet, Terra Water, and then Clear Smog, Pollen Puff, Rage Powder, and Spore. This Urshifu on Rapid Strike for Yosuke here is Terra Stellar with Focus Sash. It has Surging Strike, Close Combat, Taunt, and Detect. A lot of times we see Close Combat swapped out for Aqua Jet, but this time it still has that physical damage. Chi-Yu for Yosuke here is a Choice Scarf Terra Ghost one with Heat Wave, Overheat, Dark Pulse, and Snarl. Snarl could come in pretty big against potential Kyogres here, although Chi-Yu does not really want to be facing down Kyogre unless it can potentially Terastallize. It should be moving faster, and Snarl can do a lot of good work there. Ogerpon Cornerstone Mask here is a little bit of redirection for Yosuke, along with Ivy Cudgel and Power Whip, both of which can, or well, mainly Power Whip can do some big damage into Kyogre as well. And then Fluttermane rounds it out with Terra Fairy, Booster Energy, Moonblast, Dazzling Gleam, Icy Wind, and Protect. Notably, no Ghost type stabs for this Fluttermane, opting instead for both the single target and spread damage fairy type moves. Chi-Yu and Fluttermane combined make it for an incredibly threatening duo on the field. They tend to be pretty fast. I wouldn't be surprised to see Yosuke alternate between speed tiers here, trying to mix things around. But if Yosuke has a really good plan for dealing with a relatively standard Kyogre team, that could come into play here. A lot of times Kyogre isn't always paired with Chien-Pao, but stuff like Urshifu, Rapid Strike, and Iron Hands are not the most surprising to see. So for Yosuke here, a lot of Kyogre team prep can kind of match up to whatever you're coming up across against this team. And for Gavin, you're really not too shocked by what you're seeing on the other side of the field with that Calyrex Ice, the physical attacker paired with 2 big special attackers. We're seeing really consistently with these restricted Pokemon that the restricted Pokemon is the primary damage dealer of that type, or really the only damage dealer of that type. Kyogre special attacker, Calyrex Ice physical attacker, and then the rest of the team is really focused on rounding out the other side of the damage board, either physical or special, depending on what that mon is. So going into game number 1 here, I'm interested to see what the fight over speed control is going to look like. Gavin Michaels is starting with Amoonguss and Kyogre. Yosuke is leading with the Calyrex Ice and the Urshifu Rapid Strike. So Right now, Yosuke has the opportunity to get some pretty good damage in with that Focus Sash. Urshifu, Amoonguss, however, can go for Rocky. Since it has Rocky Helmet, a Rage Powder here is going to be really, really big. However, there's nothing really threatening this Calyrex from just clicking Trick Room and being able to go to start moving first on the next turn. If Urshifu just goes for something like a U-turn here into Iron Hands or a slower Pokemon, or I'm sorry, not an Iron Hands, there is no Iron Hands for Yosuke, but into another Pokemon that feels a little bit better, into Kyogre, that could put Yosuke into a really good spot. At the same time, Kyogre doesn't feel too bad just clicking Terra Water Spout here. We are seeing the Terastallization now for this Calyrex. Terra Water is going to resist the Water Spout. Calyrex does not go down to this, especially with it just being a Mystic Water boost for the Kyogre. It's still going to do a lot of damage, don't get me wrong, and we do see that the Urshifu is staying in for the time being. Rage Powder comes on out, and we are going to see a close combat actually into the Amoonguss. It's not very effective thanks to that poison typing. And with those defense drops, this Urshifu does have the Focus Sash, so it will stay alive. Or actually, no, it won't, because the Rocky Helmet. Urshifu should almost certainly be going down here to this Water Spout. It does indeed. Calyrex takes it pretty well. It takes a little over a third of its HP in damage here, but this is where we could see that Trick Room and the Glacial Lance could start coming out. Never mind. Yosuke just wants to go for the damage off the bat. Amoonguss goes down, and a good amount of damage comes into the Kyogre. Origin Pulses should be a little bit stronger than Water Pulse now, although they do have the chance to miss. Chilling Neigh does give the Calyrex a boost. There's no more Clear Smog to get rid of that, but Gavin doesn't feel too bad about this. The Urshifu has fallen here, and now Gavin gets to make some pretty interesting choices. Iron Hands can come in, lay down the fake out pressure, but Urshifu can get a lot of advantage out of the rain here with Surging Strikes. It really, really likes to take advantage of it. It will be the fastest thing on the field if it comes in, but we already see the switch in there for Gavin. Yosuke is bringing in the Flutter Mane here, and Gavin is bringing in the Iron Hands. Iron Hands does take super effective damage from both Moonblast and Dazzling Gleam, and this Flutter Mane should be the fastest thing on the field now. Again, it's looking like Origin Pulse might be the move of choice for Gavin if he decides he wants to keep the Kyogre in. At the same time, you could go ahead and switch, but it's really hard to switch into a Flutter Mane plus Glacial Lance combo. Iron Hands can get a fake out off here at least. And since the Terastallization has already been used from the Calyrex, you know that that Flutter Mane won't have the chance to Terastallize and just goes for the Protect for the time being. We could see a double Protect here. That's exactly what comes out. And Yosuke just playing a little bit more defensively here, maybe trying to wait out the rain a little bit, although I don't know if that's going to matter all that much. Fake Out comes out from the Iron Hands. I'm interested to see what Gavin clicks here, and it is that Origin Pulse. Again, I believe once Kyogre gets down below 70% HP, that Origin Pulse is usually always going to be the better move, but you do have that chance of missing, which never feels good. We've seen a lot of missed moves define these games as of late. So now Gavin has to make a choice. Calyrex does take super effective damage from a potential Wild Charge here, and Flutter Mane more likely than not cannot take out this Iron Hands in one go. Now the question becomes, does a Moonblast plus Glacial Lance take out the Iron Hands? It is incredibly bulky, but we've seen this thing fall a lot faster than you might anticipate. Kyogre manages to avoid the Icy Wind. I don't know if that would have slowed it down below the Calyrex here, but Water Spout comes out. That would have mitigated the damage here at least. Flutter Mane manages to stay just barely alive, and Calyrex keeps a decent amount of its HP. Glacial Lance comes through, takes Iron Hands down to 14 HP with a huge critical hit. Wild Charge here should make Iron Hands KO itself, but it does get rid of the Calyrex. Kyogre now, though, on a sliver of HP, quite frankly, up against this Flutter Mane that can throw out a Dazzling Gleam or Moonblast. Honestly, I think Dazzling Gleam might do enough damage to take the Kyogre out here, but Gavin and Yosuke both have one fresh Pokemon in the back, and that could define this game. It is the Urshifu here for Gavin here with that Choice Scarf. It is going to be the fastest Pokemon on the field. Cornerstone Ogerpon for Yosuke. Hates to see a Rapid Strike Urshifu come in. That sturdy ability not doing much in the face of Surging Strikes if that is what Gavin decides to go for here. Gavin could also, though, go for Aqua Jet into the Flutter Mane, potentially, if it wants to, or if he wants to, if the Urshifu wants to, you know, it has a little autonomy, you know, that's totally how it works. And that would take care of the Flutter Mane pretty handily. At the same time, Gavin has not gone for a Terastallization yet, and that is what we see on this turn. The Urshifu is going for that Terra Water that's going to take away the fighting type weakness to Fairy, which is very, very notable. That should allow Urshifu to survive at least 2 hits, I believe, from potential Dazzling Gleam, although it depends on the combination of Dazzling Gleam and Moonblast. Aqua Jet here in the rain takes over half of Ogerpon's health, and we see an Icy Wind come out for Yosuke. It hits on both of them, even though it's not very effective. Urshifu is locked into this Aqua Jet, so it doesn't really care about that speed drop, but this might matter for the Kyogre versus the Ogerpon, and Ivy Cudgel takes the Kyogre down. It's now Urshifu up against 2 Pokemon, but Fluttermane is going to go down to a simple tickle of an Aqua Jet, and one more Aqua Jet out of this Urshifu is going to break through any spiky shields that this Ogerpon wants to set thanks to Unseen Fist, and that will take down Ogerpon very, very cleanly. The question is, can Yosuke, with a Moonblast here, do enough damage to KO Urshifu? I highly doubt it, but you never know. The other thing, though, that Gavin could do here is just go for an Aqua Jet into the Fluttermane. I think if you're Yosuke, you have to try to take the risk with a Follow Me, potentially. Okay, goes into the Ogerpon anyways. I think there's a world where potentially a Moonblast crit here seals the deal, but I am definitely not certain. Okay, if that crits, Gavin loses. I think if you're Yosuke here, the safe thing to do is click Follow Me on the Ogerpon, and then you get a chance, an opportunity for that Moonblast to crit and win. Otherwise, you land in this exact scenario where the Ogerpon is going down, and then Fluttermane falls as well on the next turn. I think the other thing that you're thinking of if you are Yosuke is that if Gavin makes a mistake and targets the Fluttermane, if Gavin makes a mistake and targets the Fluttermane, never mind. I don't know what I'm talking about. If Gavin targets the Fluttermane, that means the Ogerpon gets to Wood Hammer into it, or Power Whip, whichever one of the 2 grass type moves the Ogerpon has, into the Urshifu, which should outright KO it. So I don't know what I'm talking about. At the same time, Power Whip could miss, but I digress. So that is that was the best play from Yosuke there. Gave himself a chance of winning. Your critical hit Moonblast would have done it, or if Gavin had targeted the Fluttermane, a grass type move into that Urshifu slot would have done it. But Gavin makes the correct play. I would not have, I don't think. Yosuke hopes for that critical hit with the Moonblast. It does not get it, and on to game number 2 we go. If you're Yosuke, I'm interested to see what adaptations get made here, and both players actually make some changes on this first game. Yosuke leads with the Calyrex, Gavin still leads with the Kyogre, but both players are bringing their Urshifus in. Gavin's does move first in terms of speed. I'm interested if Yosuke is going to be switching out Urshifu here, trying to preserve the Focus Sash, but Yosuke also still has... Actually, Yosuke didn't change anything. I'm losing my mind. It's a late night. Yosuke has the same lead with the Urshifu on the field now, and Gavin decides to switch out the Kyogre this time with the Urshifu on the field. Qian Pao comes out, and with the Sword of Ruin, that is going to weaken both of Yosuke's Pokemon's defenses. It also weakens Gavin's own Urshifu, but Urshifu is going to be the first thing to move on the field. We see the Terrestrialization come out. This is a Terra Water Urshifu in the rain with a Qian Pao on the field. You quite frankly are rarely going to have an opportunity to be stronger than this. Yosuke going for a Terrestrialization of his own. I imagine it's going to be on the Calyrex once again. Yes, just in case of a Water Spout, this is the best that you could possibly resist it if you are Yosuke, but there are no further swaps. Yosuke is in with these 2 Pokemon here. Surging Strikes is coming out, looking to see who it's into, and it is into Yosuke's Urshifu Rapid Strike. It doesn't look like this is going to be quite enough to one-shot here. Yosuke does just barely survive with that Urshifu. This does give the Calyrex an opportunity to either Trick Room or go for a Glacial Lancer, which is going to do a lot into both Pokemon. Close Combat is going to break Qian Pao's Focus Sash, and that means that this Calyrex can get another attack boost right here and now. Urshifu will resist a Glacial Lance, but it's still going to take quite a bit of damage. High Horsepower is actually the move of choice here, and Urshifu goes down to just under half HP. So Yosuke is the one that can still go for another attack here. Yosuke can go for an Aqua Jet if he so chooses, potentially into Qian Pao or into the opposing Urshifu. Notably, Calyrex here, I doubt it goes down to a Surging Strike Sucker Punch. It certainly could, but I I don't know how I feel about that if I am Yosuke. I might be a little bit scared of it. We see the Sucker Punch goes into the Urshifu, instead takes out Yosuke's Urshifu, and it falls. I'm pretty confident this Calyrex is able to survive a Surging Strikes here. Gavin is going to go for it. This is going to be resisted, and Calyrex is pretty darn bulky. Yeah, it looks like it's going to do about half of Yosuke's Ice Rider's HP. So now this Ice Rider gets to go for a Glacial Lance or High Horsepower, whatever move it wants to. Could even go for a Trick Room here potentially. I'm interested to see what Yosuke clicks here. It is going to be that Glacial Lance. It's going to take down this Champower, and I think it should take down this Urshifu. Not quite. Urshifu survives on 21 HP here. Definitely tanking that pretty well, but that is going to be a +1 to this Calyrex. We could potentially see now Ogerpon hit the field, or anything else that Yosuke has in the back. I wouldn't be surprised to see a mix-up for Yosuke here. We do see the Flutter Mane here. It comes on in. It should be the second fastest thing now. It all comes down to what this booster energy gets those numbers up to. Kyogre is feeling pretty good. It cannot Terrastalize, so it is maybe a little bit worried about, actually it's not, I'm not really sure it's worried about too much. Icy Wind could be a bit of a threat here, but Gavin wants to maintain that Urshifu. Aqua Jet in the back could be pretty big, but we see that Dazzling Gleam come out now. It's super effective into the Iron Hands and does a little bit into the Kyogre. Critical hit might matter towards the end of the game here. Water Spout's going to do quite a bit, but both Pokemon stay alive. That is absolutely massive. Glacial Lance comes in now. Iron Hands goes down, and Kyogre goes down to about a third of its HP. With that Iron Hands down, that means Urshifu is going to have to come in, and that is another Chilling Neigh boost. It probably goes down to an Aqua Jet. It would be really, really close, but this Flutter Mane is still on the field and is still going to be moving very, very fast if it doesn't get taken down. Gavin does have an opportunity to go Aqua Jet into the Flutter Mane and then potentially Ice Beam into the Ice Rider. Water Spout will also do a good amount of damage. We see a Protect come out from the Calyrex here, guaranteeing that it's going to stay on the field. Aqua Jet comes out from the Urshifu. I'm interested to see who this targets here. It goes into the Flutter Mane. So Flutter Mane goes down, Calyrex stays on the field, and that is going to lead Yosuke into his last Pokemon, putting us into a 2v2 for the end of this match. I'm sorry, the end of this game specifically. The match ain't over yet. Don't worry, I'm not spoiling. I don't know what comes after this. Hint, hint. All right, Ogerpon is here. It's the same for Yosuke in this game number 2. So Ogerpon has the opportunity to just go for a Follow Me here to guarantee that the Urshifu does not get any more damage into the Calyrex. However, with the speed drop on the Kyogre, I think that can guarantee that this Ogerpon gets some more damage out. We see the Kyogre go for a Protect here. I'm interested to see what the Ogerpon goes for. Aqua Jet out of the Urshifu now, goes into the Calyrex and takes it down. Now, did Yosuke make the right call? Which Pokemon is Yosuke targeting down right here? If it's the Urshifu, I believe that should basically guarantee Yosuke a win, but it is not. It is into the Kyogre. So right now it is a Cornerstone Ogerpon versus 2 water types. The rain does stop. That could be pretty big, but these water type moves are still going to do quite a lot of damage into this Ogerpon. Kyogre trying to go for another Protect here. If Gavin can get the double Protect, that's going to feel really, really nice, unless Yosuke is making the call to go into the Urshifu. But with the Protect failing, the Aqua Jet's going to come through. This is going to break the Sturdy from the Ogerpon, and it's going to do quite a bit of damage. Not quite as much as it did before, about a third of Ogerpon's HP, so it is going to be a 3-hit KO. Ivy Cudgel comes through, goes into the Urshifu, and Urshifu goes down. Kyogre now has to go for more damage. If Kyogre got an attack off this turn, that might have just done it, fully depending on if it hits or not. Water Spout not quite fully effective here. The Ivy Cudgel comes through though. Ogerpon is very, very strong, and even though it's not going to be super effective, it still takes the restricted Pokemon down. And with that, we go in to a game number 3 here. I am very interested to see what the adaptation is going to be. Gavin Michaels, even though he won game number 1, brought in the Chien-Pao for game number 2. If you're Yosuke, I think you're kind of hoping for a little bit of a better result than that. There is very much a world where that last turn goes in Gavin's favor, and it is a 2-0 over to Gavin. But going into game number 3 here, I wouldn't be surprised to see some switch ups. Yosuke hasn't been super far behind in these games, but Gavin has had the advantage most of the time, or has been able to claw his way back into the game. So with that said, let's get into game number 3 here, and both trainers have swapped it up. Gavin Michaels has the Iron Hands out as well as the Urshifu once again, but Yosuke has swapped it up, bringing the Ogerpon in the lead and the Ice Rider Calyrex once again. So Ice Rider Calyrex, Terra Water here is still a little bit risky. It would resist the Surging Strikes, but it would take a lot of damage from Wild Charge. It's still going to take a lot of damage from a potential low kick if it goes into it, but right now Fake Out is alive and well. Urshifu, other than any priority moves, is going to be the fastest thing on the field, but Yosuke goes for the swap. That's the first action we are going to see, and Amoonguss comes out. This is a Rocky Helmet Amoonguss. Again, this thing is pesky, pesky, pesky. Yosuke then goes for a Protect with the Calyrex. Protecting in front of Urshifu is always a little bit risky thanks to that Unseen Fist, but it is the Iron Hands that is targeting that slot. Calyrex retains its Terra, not having to Terastallize yet, and gets to see this U-turn and watch the Urshifu switch out. Gavin does take a little bit of chip damage from that Rocky Helmet, but Gavin now has full information of what is on the field and gets to make a very well-informed choice on who to bring in, and it is going to be that Kyogre. Kyogre right now is going to be the fastest thing on the field. Amoonguss doesn't really want to take an Ice Beam, but this thing is pretty bulky. Ice Beam does not always take it out. And even though it can go for redirection, Water Spout is still very much a threat. We've seen very consistently that Yosuke over the previous 2 games, whenever Kyogre has been on the field, that has meant a Terastallization for this Calyrex. I wouldn't be surprised to see the same thing here, but if that happens, that opens Calyrex up to a potential Wild Charge from Iron Hands. So with that said, we could still see the Rage Powder, or we could even see a switch, and this Amoonguss could try to go for a Spore on either of these Pokemon here, which would really, really make Gavin's life a lot harder. Again, I find it hard to imagine that this Amoonguss is going to go down here, even with that, even with that U-turn. Kyogre does get a lot of damage out, and Yosuke actually did not go for a Terra. Glacial Lance comes through, does a decent amount of damage, but Wild Charge should still take it down even without the Terastallization. So Yosuke smartly saving the Terra. The Glacial Lance gets some good damage off, and this Calyrex goes down. That slot was probably going to be hard to save anyways, and we see the Spore come out. So Calyrex is down, and Kyogre goes to sleep. Iron Hands has some good chip on it, and Amoonguss is relatively low. Yosuke now has to bring in either Ogerpon or that 4th Pokemon in the back, and we see the Urshifu Rapid Strike come back out. Surging Strikes feels really good if you are this Urshifu. You could try to take out the Kyogre, but it is asleep, and it has to sleep on this next turn. That might make you tempted to go into that Iron Hand slot. If, with Gavin already thinking about that, swapping into the Amoonguss in that Iron Hand slot might not feel too bad. You can make this Urshifu take a ton of Rocky Helmet damage and break that Focus Sash. On the other hand, you also have Amoonguss able to Spore into that slot, and if you bring in your own Amoonguss for Gavin, you will not go to sleep. So, this Kyogre, we've seen a lot of people switching out their sleeping Pokemon, trying to just get them out of here, make something else happen with them maybe later, or just accept that it's out of the game. We see Gavin, though, leaving the Kyogre in, swapping out the Iron Hands, and bringing in the Amoonguss. Again, this is great against potential Surging Strikes and Spore into that slot, but Yosuke takes this as an opportunity, sees the threat that Gavin is under, sees the switch, and says, all right, I'm going to make a switch myself, and Cornerstone Ogerpon comes in. Yosuke, though, does go for the Terastallization here, and it is going to be on the Urshifu. Notably, this is a Terra Stellar Urshifu, so the first move of each type is going to be doing additional damage. Surging Strikes here, close combat, both have an opportunity to get a lot done, and it is going to be the Surging Strike that comes out first, but it is going to be into that Amoonguss. Even with the Terra Stellar boost, even in the rain, Rocky Helmet is going to be doing about as much damage to this Urshifu as Urshifu is doing to the Amoonguss. This is always a hard spot to be in as an Urshifu Rapid Strike player. Rocky Helmet Amoonguss is just so bulky and just does so much damage. I'm interested to see exactly what Urshifu's health is after that turn. And yeah, he's essentially down to half. That Focus Sash is broken. Amoonguss can just go back into the party, get a lot of health back with that Regenerator, and Urshifu is left to its own devices, essentially. It's down to half. Urshifu is Yosuke's primary damage source for the rest of this game. Cornerstone Ogerpon can still do a lot of damage, but it's not going to be doing as much as that Terrastellar Ogerpon wanted to, or Terrastellar Urshifu wanted to. We do see the Ivy Cudgel into the Iron Hands, and it is a critical hit that does a lot, but it might not be enough. I'm interested to see where this close combat goes. It does go into the Kyogre. With the Terrastellar boost, it does manage to take it out. Yosuke gets a knockout on this Kyogre, but gets a defense and special defense drop. Iron Hands can go for fake out here into either of these slots. We could see a potential spiky shield or detect here. However, Gavin now, with that fake out pressure, also brings in Rapid Strike Urshifu of his own. So even if Yosuke does want to go for a protect here, that Pokemon will still potentially get hit by Surging Strikes of Gavin's own. So with the defense drop for Yosuke, you are very, very worried about Surging Strikes going to that slot. You know that your Cornerstone Ogerpon does pretty decently insert into Surging Strikes, can still survive it, but this is in the rain. It is going to be a lot, and we see it retreat into an Amoonguss here. If you're Gavin, do you make the same play that Yosuke just made? Do you take the risk and throw your own Urshifu at the opposing Amoonguss? We see Gavin now going for the Terastallization here, not necessarily the Terrastellar, but it is the Terra Water Urshifu once again for Gavin. Surging this again, this is the strongest that this Urshifu is likely going to be, since there is no Qianpao on the board. Fake out goes into the opposing Urshifu, and we see Gavin go for Surging Strikes. Where is it targeting? It's targeting the opposing Amoonguss. So both Urshifus have gone into the Amoonguss with the Rocky Helmet, dealing a bunch of damage to themselves, but notably dealing a good amount to these mushrooms. If you are Gavin, I think you're feeling a little bit better about this. The opposing Amoonguss is now very, very low. Might be able to go down to an Aqua Jet in the future if you are able to retreat and come back out, but Yosuke's Urshifu doesn't get a chance to go for an attack here. The rain does stop, so Surging Strikes for both of these players is going to be much more neutered, as well as the potential Aqua Jet. I think Aqua Jet in the rain might be able to take that Amoonguss down, but I think outside of it, it would be too little. However, this Iron Hands is still alive and well. It can throw out some wild charges here, do quite a bit of damage. It can also just go for Drain Punches if it so chooses. Rage Powder here is a signal that Yosuke is ready to just sacrifice this Amoonguss to try to get through to the end game here. I think Surging Strikes should just take it out in one hit. It will do a little bit more recoil damage into the Urshifu. That might give Yosuke an opening to take out the opposing Urshifu Rapid Strike, but you still have to deal with a potential wild charge from this Iron Hands. The recoil might be enough to take it out, but if it's a Drain Punch, that could be even worse. So close combat is what comes out for Yosuke into the Urshifu, takes it down, drops the Urshifu's defense and special defense even more. It's going to go down to whatever this Iron Hands wants to throw at it, and then it's going to come down to essentially an Ogerpon Amoonguss endgame potentially. This Iron Hands should go down to a future Ogerpon here. Drain Punch comes through. It's going to heal it up a good amount. Not too much, but maybe a little bit below half, down up to 75 HP. So Urshifu is going to go down. It is now Ogerpon versus Amoonguss and Iron Hands. Amoonguss cannot put this Ogerpon to sleep. Ogerpon is a grass type, but it does have Pollen Puff. That is pretty big because it does hit Ogerpon for neutral damage, I believe. I believe Rock resists Bug. I don't know. Bug is probably my weakest type coverage, I'll be honest. So what does this Ogerpon get to do? Gavin could also potentially side Pollen Puff into the Iron Hands, which is pretty darn big, but Yosuke does not give him the chance to. Pollen Puff comes through into the Ogerpon, does quite a bit of damage. It is super effective. This just in, Rock does not resist Bug. So what happens here between Ivy Cudgel and Pollen Puff? That is the big question. A critical hit. Ivy Cudgel is huge. Pollen Puff now into the Ogerpon here. It is a 1v1 for the game. If you're Gavin, I don't really see a good way out of this. We see Yosuke celebrating there on the side. Pollen Puff versus Ivy Cudgel. Ivy Cudgel coming through once more. I think even without that crit, Yosuke might have been able to take that home, but we see absolute elation there. Yosuke Takayanagi going in to the top 4 of EUIC. A very, very close game to round out the top 8 here, sending us into the top 4 videos, which are going to be coming out tomorrow. Both the top 4 videos and the finals. So keep an eye out. Until next time, y'all, be safe, be smart, make wise decisions, and farewell.